This program is a work of fiction. The station, broadcast, and events are not real and do not depict any actual emergency. Created for entertainment purposes only.
This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, Tillamook County Perimeter, the Perimeter Broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. I want to begin before the language changes. At the first report, while officials are still using the word they are already preparing to abandon, in the hours ahead, the description of what is in the sky is going to be revised more than once. I am going to relay each revision as it arrives. It is now 9:14 p.m. Pacific. This is the overnight desk at KQWL 1620 AM. About 40 minutes ago, a man standing on the north jetty at the mouth of the harbor called the station to report a second light in the sky, holding steady about one hand width to the left of the moon. He said he watched it for 6 minutes before he called. He said he waited because he wanted to be sure. He said, in his own words as I received them, that it was not blinking, it was not moving, and it did not look like an aircraft. It looked, he said, like a smaller, dimmer copy of the moon. I want to be careful with that wording. I am passing along as received. A regional coordination desk on the coast is currently describing the report as an unverified secondary luminous object, likely a planet at low elevation, likely Venus or Jupiter caught in unusual atmospheric layering, likely a high-altitude balloon, or possibly lens flare from a coastal light source refracting to the marine layer. That is the language they used. Unverified, likely, possibly, for separate soft words in a single sentence. I am noting that because when a coordination desk stacks that many soft words, it usually means they have not yet decided which one they want to keep. The fog off Highway 101 tonight is thin, thinner than it has been in a week. Anyone standing on their porch in Garibaldi, in Rockaway Beach, in Bay City, in the flats north of Tillamook, can look up and see the moon clearly. It is a waxing gibbous, about 3 days from full, and I am told now by a second caller and a third, from separate parts of the county, that there's a second small pale disk holding position beside it, to the northeast, and that it has not moved relative to the moon in the time they have been watching. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I am going to stay on this. We are treating it seriously because the reports are consistent, not because anyone in official capacity has yet said the word we are all thinking. It is now 9:22 p.m. The coordination desk has issued a short bulletin, and I will paraphrase it precisely, because the wording matters. They are advising that the observation currently circulating from North Coast observers is being reviewed as a probable calibration issue in visual reporting, most likely attributable to atmospheric refraction, a rising planet, or a stationary lighted balloon at high altitude, and they are asking members of the public not to relay it as confirmed until an astronomical desk has weighed in. That is the official framing. A calibration issue in visual reporting. I want to be precise about what that means. That is the language a coordination desk uses when it does not yet want to say the human eyes are correct. I am reading at the same time a short verified institutional note from a coastal maritime observation post, one of the small unmanned installations north of the Cape. Their sky-facing camera, which runs continuously for weather logging, has captured a secondary bright point in the frame beside the moon since roughly 8:41 p.m. Pacific. The camera does not lie about refraction. The camera does not lie about balloons. The camera is a fixed instrument, and the point has not drifted across the frame in the way an aircraft would, and it has not risen in the way a planet would. It has held its position relative to the moon exactly for 41 minutes. I need to be careful here. That is one instrument at one location. It could still be an artifact. I am relaying it because the coordination desk has not yet mentioned it, and I think a listener has a right to hear it hedged before it becomes part of the official record. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and we are relaying only what is verified or what is under active verification. A caller from the Harbor District, second call of the evening, reports that the fishing crews still tied up at the docks are all on deck, all looking up, and that the older men among them have gone quiet in a way the caller describes as unusual. I am not going to dramatize that. I am relaying it because a working harbor going quiet at 9:20 on a clear night is itself a data point. We are waiting on the astronomical desk. I am told an initial reading should come in within the hour. It is now 9:31 p.m. The astronomical desk has not yet issued its statement. I am told the delay is procedural. I am passing that along as received, though I want to note carefully that a procedural delay on a routine planetary identification is itself unusual. Identifying Venus at low elevation takes a competent astronomer about 90 seconds. We are now at 40 minutes and counting. In the interim, a regional emergency management office has released a short holding statement, and I am going to paraphrase it exactly. They are asking coastal residents not to place calls to emergency lines regarding the visible sky object unless there is an accompanying safety concern. They are stressing that the object, whatever its nature, poses no immediate hazard. They are stressing that verification is in progress, and they are asking broadcasters to refrain from characterizing the object until an identification is issued. That is the official framing. I want to be precise about what that means. It means they are aware the reports are widespread enough that a coordination desk in an emergency management office felt the need to issue guidance to broadcasters at 9:30 on a Wednesday night. That is the first time I have heard official language move in that direction on something that is officially still a calibration issue. I want to note one small thing on my own board here. KQWL 1620 AM runs a weak signal reference tone in the background of the transmitter chain, a technical baseline our engineers use to check drift. That tone has not changed. Everything on the station side is normal. I am mentioning it now at 9:31 p.m. because I would like to be able to say later, if something changes, that I noticed when it did. A caller from the flats north of Tillamook, whom I will describe only as a night driver on Highway 101, reports that traffic along a 2-mile stretch near the county line has slowed to a crawl, not from any obstruction on the road, but because drivers are pulling onto the shoulder and getting out of their vehicles to look up. The caller states that this is happening on both sides of the highway. The caller states that no one is speaking. The caller states that the second light, in her words, is very small and very still and looks like it has always been there. I am relaying that phrasing because I found it striking. I am not endorsing it. I am passing along as received. It is now 9:38 p.m. A verified institutional report has come in from a small observatory operated by a coastal university, which I will keep unnamed here to avoid characterizing their statement before they are ready to issue one publicly. Their overnight staff have trained a telescope on the position indicated by the coastal camera and by the caller reports. They are reporting informally that the object resolves as a small, roughly spherical body with a measurable disk, not a point source. That is the phrasing, a measurable disk. That removes one easy explanation. Planets at any elevation do not resolve as a disk to a small telescope in the way the moon does. Balloons do not hold position against the celestial sphere. Aircraft do not sit still relative to the moon for an hour. A measurable disk, holding position, is not any of the things a coordination desk listed at 9:22. I need to be careful with what I do with that. It is one telescope. It is an informal reading. It has not been passed through any official channel. I am relaying it because the coordination desk is now 64 minutes into a calibration explanation, and a working telescope has looked at the thing and seen a disk. A regional coordination desk has, in the last 2 minutes, updated its language. They are no longer describing the report as a probable calibration issue. They are describing it as an unverified secondary luminous object under active review. That language has changed in the last few minutes. I want to note the shift precisely. The word probable is gone. The word calibration is gone. What remains is unverified and under active review. Those are the two phrases a coordination desk uses when it has stopped believing its own first explanation, but does not yet have a replacement. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing to relay verified information. It is now 9:47 p.m. A caller from a residential block in Rockaway Beach reports that a neighbor, an amateur astronomer with a backyard setup, has been on his lawn since 9:05 p.m. and has now come inside to make phone calls. The caller reports that the neighbor is, in her description, not upset, but very quiet, and has asked the caller not to relay his name to any broadcaster. I will honor that. What I will relay is the substance of what the caller passed on. The neighbor has told her that whatever is beside the moon is not in any catalog he has access to. He has told her that its apparent size, measured against the moon in his eyepiece, is approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of the lunar disk. He has told her that it is not moving in the way anything he is familiar with moves. And he has told her that he has been an amateur astronomer for 31 years, and he has never had to make a phone call like the one he is making now. I am relaying that as received. I cannot verify the individual observations. I can note that they align with the coastal camera, with the university telescope's informal reading, and with the caller reports from 3 separate parts of the county. The astronomical desk has still not issued its statement. We are past the hour mark. I am told an update is imminent. I am waiting on it. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and I am going to stay on this desk through the night, if that is what the reports require. It is now 9:56 p.m. The astronomical desk has released its statement, and I want to read the substance of it carefully, because the wording is unusual. They are describing the observed object as an unidentified persistent luminous body, apparent angular diameter approximately 1/4 of the lunar disk, position stable relative to the moon within the observational margin, and not corresponding to any cataloged natural or artificial object at that elevation. That is the language. Not corresponding to any cataloged object. I want to be careful with that. I want to be precise. A working astronomical desk at a public institution has said on the record that the thing beside the moon is not in the catalog. That is a different sentence than a calibration issue. That is a different sentence than a rising planet. That is a sentence that ends the first phase of this broadcast. At the same time, the Regional Coordination Desk has revised its language again. They are no longer using the phrase unverified secondary luminous object. They are now using the phrase persistent unidentified lunar analog body. I need to be precise about what that means. Lunar analog, that is a specific choice of word. It is not a planet, not a balloon, not an aircraft. It is being described in terms of the moon. It is being placed linguistically in the same category as the moon. That is stage 2 of the language, and has arrived at 9:56 p.m., about 102 minutes after the first caller from the North Jetty picked up his phone. I want to note one small thing before I move on. The transmitter reference tone at KQWL is still normal. The engineers on the overnight shift have confirmed nothing on our end has drifted. I am flagging that only to keep an honest baseline. A verified institutional report from the Coastal Camera Network, which now includes 6 separate installations from the Cape North to the county line, indicates that all 6 cameras at all 6 locations are showing the same secondary body in the same position relative to the moon, adjusted for the small parallax differences you expect from cameras spread over that distance. That parallax is important. Parallax means the object is far. Parallax means it is not a local light source, not a reflection in the atmosphere, not a hallucination confined to one hillside. 6 cameras, spread over 60 miles of coast, are all showing it, and the small differences in its apparent position across those cameras are consistent with an object at a great distance in the general region of the moon. That removes another easy explanation. It is now 10:04 p.m. A caller from Bay City reports that the local high school football field, which was hosting a scrimmage that ran late, has emptied out onto the parking lot, and that families are standing on the asphalt looking east. The caller reports that no announcement was made. People simply began drifting outside. The caller notes, and I am passing this along as received, that a child asked her mother why there were 2 moons, and that the mother did not answer. I am relaying that only because it is the first caller report to use, without hedging, the specific phrasing 2 moons. Up until now, callers have said second light, second object, the thing beside the moon, a smaller moon. 2 moons is a different sentence. 2 moons treats it as a settled fact. I want to be careful with that. The coordination desk has not used that phrase. The astronomical desk has not used that phrase. I am not using that phrase. I am reporting that a caller used it, and that no one on her end corrected her. It is now 10:13 p.m. A regional emergency management office has issued a follow-up advisory, and I will paraphrase as received. They are advising coastal residents that the object visible near the moon is under continued observation, poses no known immediate hazard, and does not require any protective action at this time. They are asking residents not to travel to elevated viewing locations solely for purpose of observation, citing traffic buildup on Highway 101 and on the roads leading up to the Cape. They are asking broadcasters to relay only verified information and to refrain from speculation. I want to note that the advisory does not use the word temporary. It does not use the word transient. It does not use the word passing. Those are all words a coordination desk would ordinarily reach for at this stage, if it believed them to be true. Their absence is not proof of anything. It is a small linguistic gap, and I am flagging it. A verified institutional report from the small university observatory has come into official channels this time. They are reporting that the object is not exhibiting any measurable motion relative to the moon over the 90-minute period they have been tracking it. 90 minutes. If the object were in a low Earth orbit, 90 minutes is roughly one full pass. It has not moved. If the object were a distant natural body drifting through the solar system, 90 minutes should show a measurable shift against a stellar background. It has not shifted. The object is holding position with the moon. That is the phrasing they used. Holding position with the moon. I am told the observatory is now preparing a formal notification to a national astronomical coordination body. I do not yet have the text of that notification. I expect to have it within the next update. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and the language around what is in the sky above Tillamook County has moved in 120 minutes from calibration issue to persistent unidentified lunar analog body holding position with the moon. That is a real shift. I want listeners to be able to hear it clearly. We are going to keep advancing. It is now 10:24 p.m. The formal notification from the Coastal University Observatory has been transmitted to a national astronomical coordination body, and a short version of it has been made available for relay. I am going to read the substance of it carefully. The notification described the object as a persistent, apparently gravitationally bound, non-catalog body, maintaining a fixed angular separation from Earth's moon, with an apparent angular diameter of between 1/4 and 1/3 of the lunar disk, no measurable proper motion, and no identified source of origin. That is the language. Apparently gravitationally bound. I need to be precise about what that means. Gravitationally bound is a phrase astronomers use when they cannot explain how something is holding its position, except by assuming that gravity is doing the work. It does not tell you what is producing the gravity. It does not tell you what the object is made of. It tells you only that whatever is out there is behaving as if it belongs where it is. I want to be careful with that. That is a sentence that quietly closes several doors. It closes the balloon door. It closes the aircraft door. It closes the atmospheric refraction door. It leaves open the door that says the thing is real and out there and staying. At the same time, the Regional Coordination Desk has released a short public-facing update, and I am paraphrasing precisely. They are advising that the phenomenon currently visible in the sky over the Pacific Northwest is under continued observation by multiple institutions, that no immediate hazard has been identified, and that residents should continue with normal activities while remaining alert to further advisories. Continue with normal activities. That is a phrasing. I am flagging it because it is a phrase coordination desks use when they do not know what else to say. Continue with normal activities does not tell you what to do. It tells you what not to do. It tells you not to panic. It tells you not to leave. It tells you not to call the emergency lines. It is a holding sentence. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I am continuing to relay verified information. It is now 10:33 p.m. A caller from a coastal fishing crew tied up at the harbor reports that one of the older captains, a man the caller describes only as a lifelong deckhand, has come down from the wheelhouse of his boat with a tide chart and a notepad. The caller reports that the captain has been comparing the printed tide table for tonight against the actual water level at the pier, and that there is a small discrepancy. The tide, according to the caller, is running roughly 2 to 3 inches higher than the printed prediction for this hour, and it is not correcting toward the expected value, 2 to 3 inches. I want to be careful with that. That is well within the ordinary noise of a coastal tide, which is affected by wind, by barometric pressure, by local bathymetry, and by half a dozen other factors. It is not, on its own, a data point. I am relaying it because the caller and the captain the caller is describing both connected it unprompted, to what is visible in the sky. I am not endorsing that connection. I am noting that a working captain, on his own tide chart, reached for it. We are waiting on the next coordination call. I expect it within the hour. It is now 10:41 p.m. A verified institutional report is coming from a coastal tide gauge station operated as part of a national ocean observation network. Their automated readings for the past 2 hours indicate a small positive residual in local sea level on the order of 2 to 4 inches above the harmonic prediction, with no corresponding atmospheric pressure anomaly and no wind event that would account for it. The gauge is one of several along this stretch of coast, and I am told the same small residual is showing up at 3 separate gauges. 3 separate gauges. That is the phrasing. I want to be precise about what that means. A residual at 1 gauge is noise. A residual at 3 gauges, running in the same direction at the same time, without a matching weather cause, is a signal. It is a small signal. It is not, on its own, alarming. It is, however, the kind of signal a coastal coordination desk would ordinarily explain within an hour, and I do not yet have an explanation. I want to hold that thread. 3 gauges, a small residual, no weather cause. I will come back to it. A regional emergency management office has released a short technical note alongside its public advisory, aimed at maritime operators. They are advising vessels operating in coastal waters that harbor pilots and small craft operators may observe minor deviations in tidal timing and range over the coming hours, that these deviations are within navigational safety margins at present, and that operators should continue to follow standard practice. Minor deviations in tidal timing and range. I am noting the phrasing. That is the first time this evening that an official body is connected, even obliquely, the sky observation to any physical effect on the ground. They are not saying the two are related. They are issuing a note about tides at the same time. They are issuing a note about the sky. A listener has a right to hear them adjacent to each other. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now 10:49 p.m., and I want to note, on the way to the next update, that the transmitter reference tone at this station is still normal. Nothing on our end has drifted. I am flagging at every stage because I would like to have that baseline on the record. The next update is coming. We're going to keep advancing. It is now 10:58 p.m. A verified institutional report has arrived from a seismic monitoring array on the Oregon coast, and I want to read this one carefully because it is the third source. The array logs continuous ground motion in a frequency band that includes long-period signals well below anything a person can feel. Their overnight technicians have flagged a weak, sustained additional signal in the low-frequency band, beginning at approximately 9 p.m. Pacific and continuing at low amplitude since. The signal does not match any known local seismic source. It does not match ocean microseism, which has its own signature. It does not match a distant earthquake. It is described in the report as a diffuse, low-amplitude, non-tectonic, long-period disturbance of unknown origin. Unknown origin. That is the phrasing. I need to be careful with that. A single seismic array flagging a week-long period signal is not, on its own, a story. But I want to place it beside the other 2 threads we have running. The 3 tide gauges showing a small positive residual. The coastal cameras in the observatory showing an object beside the moon that is holding its position. And now, a seismic array showing a weak low-frequency ground signal that started approximately at the time the first caller from the North Jetty picked up his phone. 3 independent sources, a camera network, a tide gauge network, a seismic array, each one reporting a small anomaly it cannot explain, in a different physical channel, all beginning within the same window of time. I am not at this desk going to characterize what that means. I am going to note that a coordination desk with 3 independent anomalies converging on a single hour tends to move as language, and we are about to see whether that happens. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing to relay verified information. It is now 11:06 p.m. A caller from a residential block on the north side of Tillamook, who identifies himself as a retired maritime electronics technician, reports that a small collection of neighbors on his street have gathered in his driveway to compare notes. The caller reports that one neighbor, working from a marine handheld receiver, has noted a faint additional carrier on a normally quiet frequency, appearing intermittently over the past 2 hours, with no identifiable source. He is not describing it as a transmission. He is describing it as a soft, unmodulated hiss that comes up above the noise floor and then falls back. I am relaying that with all the appropriate caution. Amateur radio observations from a driveway are not verified data. I would ordinarily not include it in this broadcast. I am including it because it is the fourth channel in one evening in which a small unexplained additional signal is being described in Tillamook County. Camera, tide, seismic, and now a radio band. I want that noted in the record, and I will not build on it further until it is confirmed elsewhere. We are waiting on international confirmations. I am told they are coming. It is now 11:11 p.m. I want to note a conflict in the wire relays that has just crossed my desk. A national wire service, in a short bulletin distributed within the last 10 minutes, has characterized the object visible near the moon as a probable high-altitude reflective test article, citing an unnamed defense source. That is the phrasing. A probable high-altitude reflective test article. At almost the same moment, the regional coordination desk on this coast has issued a short correction without naming the wire service, advising broadcasters that no such characterization has been confirmed through any coordination channel, that no test article of any description has been reported in the affected airspace tonight, and that the object under observation does not match, in size, position, or behavior, any known reflective platform. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the first version of the story, going out over a national wire, is already at odds with the technical picture on the coast. I am flagging that as received. I am not endorsing either framing. I am noting that within 3 hours of the first caller from the North Jetty, the public record already contains two incompatible descriptions of what is in the sky, and the coordination desk on this coast has publicly declined the one that came from further away. It is now 11:19 p.m. A regional coordination desk has released a brief statement acknowledging, for the first time, that the object visible near the moon is being observed simultaneously from multiple continents. That is a phrasing. Observed simultaneously from multiple continents. I want to read the substance of what that means. It means the coordination desks are now aware that this is not a local optical phenomenon. Local optical phenomena do not appear from multiple continents at once, in the same position relative to the moon. Local optical phenomena are, by definition, local. The fact that the same object is being seen at the same angular separation from the moon, from observation sites in Europe, from sites in Eastern Asia, and from sites in the Southern Hemisphere, is a fact that closes another door. It closes the door labeled illusion. It closes the door labeled instrumentation error at one facility. It closes the door labeled coincidence. The astronomical desk has, in a separate release, adopted a formal designation for the object. They are calling it second lunar body, abbreviated SLB. I want to be precise about what that means. A working astronomical desk does not issue a formal designation to a calibration issue. It does not issue a formal designation to a rising planet. It issues a formal designation to a real object it expects to have to keep talking about. The name second lunar body has just been placed into the record. I want to note the shift. At 9:14 p.m., a caller from a North Jetty described a second light beside the moon. At 9:22, a coordination desk called it an unverified secondary luminous object. At 9:56, an astronomical desk called it an unidentified persistent luminous body. At 10:24, a national coordination body called it persistent, apparently gravitationally bound, non-catalog body. At 11:19 p.m., it has a name, second lunar body. That is the fourth version of the language in a little over 2 hours, and each version has been heavier than the last. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now approaching the end of the third hour of this event. The name second lunar body is in the record. The three independent anomaly threads on the tide gauges on the seismic array on the coastal cameras are still running, still unexplained, and still converging. The transmitter reference tone at this station is still normal. I am going to hold this desk until the next coordination call. The next update is coming. It is now 11:27 p.m. A verified institutional report has come in from a National Aviation Coordination Desk, and I want to read the substance carefully. They are advising that flight operations in the affected airspace over the Pacific Northwest, and now over a widening set of regions reporting the same sky observation, are being asked to disregard lunar reference visual navigation cues for the remainder of the overnight cycle, and to rely solely on instrument and ground-based references. That is the phrasing. Disregard lunar reference visual navigation cues. I want to be precise about what that means. Working pilots do not, in ordinary practice, navigate by the moon, but a small subset of overnight procedures, particularly for smaller aircraft on visual rules, use the moon as an informal orientation reference on clear nights. The aviation desk is advising, in writing, that any such reference should be set aside tonight on the basis that a second body of similar apparent brightness and unfamiliar angular separation introduces a source of error that has not been characterized. It is a small operational note. It is also the first written instruction from any working system tonight that treats the second lunar body as a factor in ordinary operations rather than as an object of observation. It is now 11:34 p.m. A verified institutional report has been consolidated across 3 continents. Observation sites in Western Europe, in East Asia, and in Australia have all confirmed a body of the same apparent angular diameter, holding the same angular separation from the moon, visible from each of their respective vantage points during their local night hours. I want to be precise about what that means. If you are standing in Portugal and you look at the moon, the second lunar body is beside it, in the same place, at the same apparent size, that is beside the moon here on the Oregon coast. If you are standing in Japan, when the moon rises for you, the second lunar body will rise with it, in the same relative position. The object is behaving, to every observer on the Earth, exactly the way the moon behaves. It is orbiting. It is not local. It is not near. It is far, in the way the moon is far, and it is fixed in its relationship to us in the way the moon is fixed. That is the phrasing a national coordination body has now used in a formal release. It is orbiting. That word is in the record. I want listeners to hear it clearly. This is KQWL 1620 AM, and the sky above Tillamook County, above every part of the Earth, currently contains 2 orbiting bodies where 12 hours ago it contained 1. It is now 11:42 p.m. A regional coordination desk has updated its advisory. They are no longer describing the object as under observation. They are describing it as under continued study, with the additional guidance that residents should expect the object to remain visible in the coming nights. Expect the object to remain visible. That phrasing has just entered the official record. I want to note it carefully. Coordination desks do not issue expected continuation advisories about calibration issues. They do not issue expected continuation advisories about transient phenomena. Expect the object to remain visible is what a coordination desk says when its internal briefing has already told it that the thing is not leaving. There is still no official statement addressing where the object came from. There has still been no reported observation of its arrival. There has still been no trajectory published. I am flagging that gap because it is the largest unresolved thread in this entire event, and it has been unresolved for 3 hours now. I expect a statement on it. I do not yet have one. It is now 11:51 p.m. A caller from a residential street in Rockaway Beach reports that the neighbor described earlier in this broadcast, the amateur astronomer with a backyard setup, has now placed a small hand-drawn diagram in his front window facing the street, showing the moon, the position of the second lunar body, and a set of measurements. The caller reports that a small group of neighbors is standing on the sidewalk looking at the diagram, and that the neighbor has come out onto his porch to answer questions. The caller reports that the neighbor, in her description, has told the small group that he has now measured the second lunar body's apparent size for separate times over the past 2 hours, and that the measurement has not changed. Its apparent size is stable. If it were approaching us, it would be growing. If it were receding, it would be shrinking. It is doing neither. It is holding its distance. I am relaying the substance as received. I cannot verify the individual measurements from this desk. I am noting them because they align with the astronomical desk's formal report that the object shows no measurable motion relative to the moon. It is now 11:58 p.m. A verified institutional report from the Coastal Tide Gauge Network has arrived, and the small positive residual is still there, 3 inches above the harmonic prediction. Still no matching weather cause. The residual has neither grown nor faded across the 2 hours it has been observed. It is holding, in the same way the object in the sky is holding. I want to be careful with that comparison. I am not the one drawing it. The report from the Tide Gauge Network notes, in its closing line, that the observed residual is, quote in the sense of paraphrase, of a magnitude broadly consistent with an additional distant gravitational contribution of small but non-negligible size. I need to be precise about what that means. That is the first time an official technical report has connected, in writing, the sea level anomaly to the possibility of an additional gravitational source. It is hedged. It says broadly consistent. It says small. It says non-negligible. It does not say the second moon is pulling the water, but it is the first sentence in the official record that leaves room for that reading. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. I am flagging that sentence, and I will come back to it. It is now 12:07 a.m. Pacific. We have crossed midnight. The second lunar body has now been visible from Tillamook County for approximately 3 hours and 11 minutes. It has been formally named. It has been confirmed from 3 continents. It is being described by a national coordination body as gravitationally bound and orbiting. A small tidal residual on 3 coastal gauges, a week-long period seismic signal on a coastal array, and now a hedge sentence in the official technical report are all pointing softly and separately in the same direction. And the coordination desks are advising the public to expect the object to remain visible. I want to note, on the way into the next hour, that the transmitter reference tone at KQWL is still normal. Nothing on our end has drifted. I am going to hold this desk. The next update is coming. It is now 12:13 a.m. A verified institutional report has come in from a regional health coordination desk, and I want to read the substance carefully, because it is the first report tonight to describe a working effect on ordinary services. The desk is advising that coastal hospitals and urgent care facilities from the Cape north to the county line are logging a small but sustained increase in non-emergency calls, beginning shortly after 10 p.m. and continuing at a low, steady rate. The calls are being described as, in the desk's phrasing, orientation-related and precautionary in nature. That is the wording. Orientation-related. I want to be precise about what that means. It does not mean injury. It does not mean illness in the ordinary sense. It means members of the public are calling to ask whether what they're seeing is affecting them, whether they should be indoors, whether they should be doing something. The desk is asking coastal residents not to place such calls to clinical lines, and is asking broadcasters to relay that request. I am relaying it as received. In the same note, the Health Coordination Desk advises that no clinical presentations attributable to the sky observation have been reported at any facility on the coast, and that no protective action is indicated. I am flagging the note because it is the first institutional report tonight that describes a working system, staffed by working people, adjusting its intake to the presence of the object. It is now 12:18 a.m. Pacific. A verified institutional report has arrived from the National Astronomical Coordination Body, and the language in it is the heaviest so far tonight. I am going to read the substance carefully. The report describes the second lunar body as, in its current best characterization, a solid or quasi-solid body of undetermined composition, with an estimated apparent angular diameter equivalent to approximately 28% of the lunar disk, a measured albedo lower than that of the moon, but consistent with rocky or dust-mantled surface, and an inferred distance broadly comparable to that of the moon itself. Broadly comparable. That is the phrasing. It means the second lunar body is out there where the moon is, not closer, not nearer, where the moon is. I need to be careful with that. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the object we have been describing, as beside the moon has been measured. It has a size. It has a surface. It has an inferred distance. It reflects light in a way that behaves like a real body reflecting real sunlight. It is not a projection. It is not an atmospheric artifact. It is not a distant satellite catching sun at an unusual angle. The astronomical desk has, at 12:18 a.m., described the second lunar body in the same technical vocabulary it would use to describe any other object of that size at that distance. That is a specific choice. That is stage 4 language beginning to arrive. I want to note one other line from the same report, because it is a line I have been waiting on for 3 hours. The report states, in its closing paragraph, that no ingress of the object into its current position has been recorded by any observatory participating in the coordination network. No approach vector has been observed. No prior detection in any survey catalog exists. That is the wording. No recorded ingress. No approach vector observed. I need to say that plainly. Every real body of that size at that distance that has ever been observed in the sky has been seen coming. Comets are tracked. Asteroids are tracked. Satellites are tracked. Even objects discovered late in their approach leave a trail in older survey imagery once astronomers know to look for it. The second lunar body does not. It is not in older survey imagery. It did not approach. It did not fade in from a distance. According to the coordinated observation record, before roughly 8:41 p.m. Pacific this evening, it was not there. After 8:41 p.m., that is the closest thing to a plain description I can give you. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing to relay verified information. It is now 12:29 AM. A regional coordination desk has issued a follow-up advisory that has, for the first time in this event, dropped the word harmless. I want to be precise about what that means. Up until 12:29 AM, every official statement about the second lunar body has included, somewhere, the phrase no immediate hazard or no known risk of public or a variant of it. The 12:29 advisory does not use those phrases. It states that the object continues to be observed, that its position remains stable, that ongoing monitoring is being coordinated across national and international channels, and that residents should follow standing guidance regarding coastal activity. It does not say the object is safe. It does not say it is dangerous. It simply, quietly, has stopped saying the first thing. That is the language a coordination desk uses when it is no longer prepared to make the reassurance in writing. I am flagging it because a listener has a right to hear that shift. It is now 12:33 a.m. A verified institutional report is coming from a regional power coordination desk. They are advising that the overnight load on the coastal grid, from the Cape north to the county line, is running approximately 4 to 6% above the model forecast for this hour, with the difference concentrated in residential draw. That is the phrasing. Residential draw. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the lights are on in more houses on the coast at 12:33 a.m. than the forecast expected. It does not, in the desk characterization, exceed any operational limit. It is well within the margin the grid is built to absorb. I am flagging it because a small residential load anomaly on the coastal grid, on a Wednesday overnight, is the shape of a lot of people being awake who would ordinarily be asleep. The report notes in a short annex that similar small positive load residuals are being reported by coordinating desks along the affected regions of the Pacific coast, and that the pattern is consistent with a widespread low-intensity, non-emergency wakeful response by the public. Widespread low-intensity, non-emergency wakeful response. That is the phrasing. I am relaying it as received. I want to note that it is the second working system tonight, after the health coordination desk, to describe the shape of the public underneath the object without describing the object itself. It is now 12:37 a.m. A caller from a coastal residential area north of Bay City reports that the household water pressure on his block has, in his description, gone slightly odd over the past 40 minutes. He describes the tap running a fraction slower than usual, and then briefly a fraction faster. He notes it is subtle enough that he might not have called about it on any other night. He is calling about it tonight because a neighbor working from a small handheld level on his kitchen counter has told him that the bubble in the level is not sitting quite where it usually sits. It is off, in his neighbor's estimate, by less than a millimeter. Less than a millimeter. I want to be careful with that. That is at the edge of what a handheld tool can even measure. It is not on its own a data point. I am relaying it because it is the fifth channel tonight in which a small unexplained variation is being described, and because a neighbor with a kitchen level on the Oregon coast should not have any reason at all to notice a change. We are waiting on the next coordination call. I expect it within the hour. It is now 12:46 a.m. A verified institutional report from the Coastal Seismic Array has been updated. The week-long period signal that began at approximately 9 p.m. is still present, at approximately the same amplitude, unchanged in character. The report notes, in a technical annex, which I will paraphrase carefully, that the signal is consistent in its frequency and its persistence with the response of the Earth's crust to a small additional external tidal forcing. Small additional external tidal forcing. That is a phrasing. I need to be precise about what that means. It means the ground itself on the Oregon coast is being described as responding faintly and continuously to something in the sky pulling on it. The report does not say the second lunar body is doing the pulling. The report describes the shape of the signal in the data. It is up to a listener to decide whether the sky and the ground and the sea, all showing the same faint additional pull at the same time, are describing three different things or one thing. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now nearing 1 a.m. and the language has moved, again, in the direction I've been watching for. It is now 12:54 a.m. I want to note something on my own board here, at this desk, before I go to the next update. The transmitter reference tone at KQWL, which our engineers use to check drift, has just picked up a very faint additional component. I am told by the overnight engineer that it is small. I am told it is a soft, narrow tone sitting a short distance above the reference frequency, at very low amplitude, barely above the noise floor. I am told it was not there an hour ago. I am told it was not there 30 minutes ago. I am told, as of the last check, it is there now. I need to be careful with that. I want to be precise. One low amplitude tone on one station's reference chain is not, on its own, evidence of anything global. It is a technical curiosity. It is the sort of thing an engineer would ordinarily investigate quietly and correct within the hour, without ever bothering the on-air desk. I am mentioning it because I said at 9:31 p.m. that I would flag any change on our end, and something on our end has changed. I am relaying it as received. The overnight engineer at this station has told me, and I am passing this along in a professional characterization, that the new component is not a station artifact. It is not a chain problem. It is not a grounding issue on our tower. It is coming into the reference band from outside. I want to hold that thread. A faint additional tone, coming into the KQWO reference chain from outside, beginning shortly after midnight on the night the second lunar body arrived. I will come back to it. This is KQWL 1620 AM. The station is on the air. The transmitter is stable. We are continuing to broadcast. It is now 1:03 a.m. A verified institutional report has come in from a small radio astronomy facility operating a low-frequency antenna at a coastal site, and I want to read this one carefully. Their overnight staff have detected, since roughly midnight, a very faint, narrow-band, non-terrestrial signal component in a portion of the spectrum they routinely monitor. The signal is described as extremely weak, essentially at the sensitivity limit of the instrument, non-modulated in any recognizable pattern, and holding a stable frequency. It is described as being consistent with a passive emission from a cold body reflecting or re-emitting long wavelength radiation, and not, in their careful phrasing, consistent with a directed transmission. Not consistent with a directed transmission. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the facility is not, at this time, describing what they're seeing as a message. They are describing it as the faint radio glow of a real physical object out there, where they are pointing the antenna. They are pointing the antenna at the second lunar body, and the antenna is picking up, at the sensitivity limit, the very faint additional signal that will be produced by any real, cold body sitting at that position. I want to place that beside the note from our own engineer. A faint additional component in the KQWO reference chain, coming from outside. A faint additional narrowband signal at a radio astronomy facility, coming from the direction of the object. I am not, at this desk, going to characterize what the relationship between those two observations is. I am going to note that they are being described tonight in different institutions, using very similar language. It is now 1:12 a.m. A regional coordination desk has released a short update, and I'm going to read the substance of it carefully. They are advising that the response posture with respect to the second lunar body has been formally moved to a status of monitoring and containment of secondary effects. Monitoring and containment of secondary effects. I want to be precise about what that means. Monitoring on its own is what a coordination desk was already doing at 10 p.m. The new word is containment. Containment of secondary effects means the coordination desks are no longer solely observing the object. They are preparing to manage the things the object is doing to the world underneath it. The tides, the ground, the water pressure in a house north of Bay City, the bubble in a kitchen level, the tone in the reference chain of a radio station. Those are the secondary effects. Containment is the word for what they are preparing to do about them. I am told a formal statement to the same effect will be issued through national channels within the next hour. I do not yet have that statement. It is now 1:21 a.m. A caller from a coastal fishing community reports that a small number of the smaller vessels tied up at the harbor have quietly left the docks in the past 40 minutes and moved further up the estuary into calmer water. The caller reports that this is not being done under any official instruction. It is being done, in her description, on the basis of long habit. The older captains have decided, on their own reading of the tide and the water, that they would rather ride out the rest of the night in the sheltered inner reach than at their usual moorings. I am relaying that as received. I want to note it because it is the first behavior report in this event that describes people on the ground quietly beginning to adjust their lives to something the official language has not yet fully acknowledged. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The next update is coming. It is now 1:33 a.m. I want to note, before I move on, that the faint additional component on the KQWL reference chain is still present. It has not grown. It has not gone away. It is holding at the same low amplitude, in the same narrow band, exactly where the overnight engineer first flagged it. I am flagging that now because I said I would. Holding. The same word the astronomical desk used to describe the object in the sky. Holding position with the moon. I need to be careful with that comparison. I am not the one drawing the equivalence. I am noting that the same word is being used in the same night for 3 different observations. The object in the sky is holding. The tidal residual on the 3 gauges is holding. The tone in the station reference chain is holding. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing to broadcast. It is now 1:44 AM. A verified institutional report has come into the Coordinated Observation Network, consolidating readings from observatories on 4 continents. The second lunar body has now been under continuous observation from at least one facility for approximately 4 hours and 40 minutes. Across that entire window, its apparent angular diameter has not changed. Its position relative to the moon has not changed. Its measured albedo has not changed. Its inferred distance has not changed. That is the phrasing and consolidated report. Its properties are stable to precision of measurement. I want to be precise about what that means. A body with stable properties, at a stable position, at a stable distance, in a stable orbital relationship with the Earth, is not, in any working sense, an anomaly. It is a body. It is a small permanent companion to the moon and to the Earth, and has been one for 4 hours and 40 minutes. That is the shape of the sentence a coordination desk is going to have to write sooner or later tonight. It has not written it yet. It is preparing to. It is now 1:53 a.m. A caller from a residential block near the county line reports that a small field observation post operated as part of a coastal monitoring program, sited on a bluff south of the Cape, has not been responding to routine hourly check-ins for the past 2 hours. I want to be careful with that. Field observation posts miss check-ins for a range of ordinary reasons. Radio issues, a technician stepping away, a logging error at the coordinating desk. It is not, on its own, cause for concern. I am flagging it because the caller has connected it unprompted to the events of the evening, and because a small number of coastal observation posts, according to the caller, are now in the same silent status. I do not have that confirmed through official channels. I am passing along what I have received, and I will hold this thread for the next update. 2 coastal observation posts, possibly a third. No routine check-ins in the past 2 hours. I will come back to it. It is now 2:04 a.m. A regional coordination desk has released a short statement, and I want to read the substance of it exactly. They are advising that a formal designation change has been made with respect to the second lunar body. It is no longer being described as a persistent unidentified lunar-analog body or as an unidentified persistent luminous body. It is now being described in official communications as a companion body of undetermined origin, currently in a stable orbital configuration with the Earth-Moon system. Companion body. That is the phrasing. I need to be precise about what that means. Companion body is not the vocabulary of an anomaly. Companion body is a vocabulary of a permanent feature. It is what an astronomical desk calls a small moon that has always been there. The coordination desks have, at 2:04 a.m., placed the second lunar body linguistically in the same category as an object that has always been there. That is a specific choice. That is the language moving into its stage 5 posture. I want to note one other line from the same release, because it closes another door. The statement says, in its final paragraph, that no mechanism has been identified by which the current configuration could be expected to change. No mechanism has been identified. That is the phrasing. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the coordination desks are not aware of any process by which the second lunar body would leave. It is not going to move away. It is not going to fall inward. It is not going to break up. It is not going to fade. There is no known way for it to go. In the vocabulary of coordination desk uses, when it is preparing the public for a permanent condition, no mechanism has been identified is the closing sentence. I am flagging it. The listener has a right to hear it clearly. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is 2:07 a.m. Pacific. The second lunar body has been in the sky for 5 hours and 26 minutes. It has been named twice, most recently as a companion body. It has stable measure properties. It has no known way to leave. 3 independent anomaly channels on the coast are still running. A faint tone is holding in the reference chain of the station. 2 coastal observation posts, possibly 3, have not answered routine check-in in 2 hours. The transmitter is stable. The station is on the air. The next update is coming. It is now 2:19 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and I am signing on again from the overnight desk with a re-anchor for any listener joining in the last few minutes. The core facts. At 9:14 p.m. this evening, a caller from a North Jetty reported a second light beside the moon. In the 5 hours since, that second light has been imaged by 6 coastal cameras, resolved as a disk by a coastal university telescope, confirmed from 4 continents, formerly named the second lunar body, measured for size and albedo, and most recently redesignated as a companion body of undetermined origin in a stable orbital configuration with the Earth-Moon system. No approach was observed. No ingress was recorded. No mechanism has been identified by which the configuration could be expected to change. That is the standing state of the record. I am adding one new detail for this sign-on, as I have done at each sign-on tonight. As of the past 20 minutes, the coordination desks are describing the object with the phrase in the sky, without qualification. Not the object near the moon, not the observed body. In the sky, it has entered the ordinary vocabulary. That is stage 5 language beginning to arrive. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing. It is now 2:28 a.m. A verified institutional report has come in from the National Coordination Body, and I want to read the substance carefully because it is the first release tonight that speaks in operational terms rather than observational ones. The report advises that all national and international activities dependent on tidal timing, on lunar reference navigation, on astronomical calibration, and on gravitational baseline modeling should from this point forward proceed under the operating assumption that the Earth-Moon system includes an additional gravitationally significant body of measurable but small mass at a stable orbital position. That is the phrasing. Should proceed under the operating assumption. I need to be precise about what that means. It means the coordination bodies are no longer asking the world's technical systems to wait for a resolution. They are asking those systems to reset their baseline. They are asking maritime operators, aviation planners, orbital tracking desks, ocean forecasters, land surveyors, and every downstream user of the gravitational and tidal reference frame to redo their assumptions with a second body included. I want to note the shape of that request. It is not phrased as an emergency. It is phrased as a change of baseline. It is a vocabulary a coordination body uses when it has accepted, internally, that the new condition is now the reference condition, when the world stops being an unusual state and starts being the ordinary state. The astronomical desk, in a companion note release at the same time, describes the second lunar body's orbital properties as, quote in the sense of paraphrase, stable at full observational precision, with no measurable variation from its initial configuration since first detection. Stable at full observational precision. That is stage 5 language. The object is not settling. It is not still resolving. It has arrived at what it is going to be. And what it is going to be is exactly what it has been since 8:41 p.m. this evening. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. We are continuing to relay verified information. It is now 2:39 a.m. A caller from a coastal residential area reports that the small field observation post on the bluff south of the Cape, which I mentioned earlier this broadcast as having missed 2 routine check-ins, has now missed a third. The caller reports that the Coastal Coordination Network is aware of the status, and that a small ground team has been dispatched by road to make direct contact with the site. I want to be careful with that. Ground teams are dispatched to unresponsive posts for ordinary reasons on ordinary nights. It is not, on its own, cause for alarm. I am flagging it because I've been holding this thread since 1:53 a.m., because a small number of coastal posts are now in the same silent status, and because I want a listener who has been with this broadcast to know that the thread is still open. I do not yet have a report back from a ground team. I expect one within the hour. It is now 2:47 a.m. A regional emergency management office has released a public advisory that I want to read in full paraphrase, because the wording is quiet, and the quiet is the point. They are advising coastal residents that the object visible in the night sky is now confirmed as a stable, non-transient feature of the local sky, that no protective action is required at this time, that ordinary activity may continue, and that residents should expect the object to remain visible in the sky, in a similar position relative to the moon on all future clear nights. That is the phrasing, on all future clear nights. I want to be precise about what that means. It is the first advisory tonight that describes the object's visibility as a standing condition, not as a passing one. It does not describe the current sky as temporary. It does not describe the object as expected to move, to fade, or to leave. It places the second lunar body, in the official record, on every clear night from this one forward. I want to be careful with that. I am not going to characterize what that sentence means for the shape of anyone's life. I am going to note that a regional emergency management office on the Oregon coast at 2:47 a.m. Pacific has told its coastal residents in writing that the sky above them from this point forward includes 2 bodies where it used to include 1. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The transmitter is stable. The faint additional tone in the reference chain is still holding at its low amplitude. The station is on the air. The next update is coming. It is now 2:58 a.m. A verified institutional report from the Coastal Tide Gauge Network has been consolidated. The small positive residual, running at 2 to 4 inches across 3 gauges for the past 5 hours, is now being characterized in the technical annex as a stable additional tidal component of magnitude consistent with the estimated mass of the second lunar body at its measured distance. Stable additional tidal component. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the tide gauge network has, in writing, connected the residual on the water to the object in the sky. It is no longer described as an unexplained anomaly. It is described as the expected small additional signal from a real additional body. The gauges are being brought inside the revised reference frame. The residual is no longer being carried as an unexplained value. It is being carried as an expected value. The Coastal Seismic Array has, in a parallel technical note, done the same. The week-long period signal from earlier tonight is now being characterized as the expected ground response to the additional external tidal forcing. It is holding at the same amplitude it has held since roughly 9 p.m. It is expected to continue at that amplitude indefinitely. That is a phrasing. Indefinitely. I want to place those two updates alongside the coordination body's earlier note asking systems to proceed under the operating assumption of a second gravitationally significant body. The three technical systems that carried the anomaly threads through the first hours of this broadcast, the tide gauges, the seismic array, and the coastal cameras, have all, in the past 40 minutes, been brought inside the new baseline. The residuals are no longer residuals. They are the ordinary numbers under the new arithmetic. This is KQWL 1620 AM. We are continuing to relay verified information. It is now 3:11 AM. A caller from a coastal residential area reports that the ground team dispatched to the small field observation post on the bluff has reached the site. The caller reports, on the basis of what she has heard on a local radio channel, that the site itself is intact. The instruments are running. The recording chain is operating. The overnight technician is not present. The technician's vehicle is not on the access road. There is no note. There is no radio contact. The site is simply unattended. I want to be careful with that. Unattended coastal observation posts in the middle of the night are explained by a range of ordinary things. Personal emergencies, a road incident, a call home. It is not, on its own, cause to characterize anything. I am relaying it because the same status is being described, according to the caller, at least at two other coastal posts. I do not have that confirmed through official channels. I am holding this thread open. It is not closed. I want to note the shape of that observation as neutrally as I can. 3 coastal posts. Instruments running. Technicians not present. No notes. No contact. I am not, at this desk, going to build on it. I am flagging that the shape is unusual. I would like a listener to know that. It is now 3:24 a.m. A regional coordination desk has released what I understand to be the last public statement it plans to issue tonight before a scheduled morning update. I am going to read the substance carefully. They are advising that the second lunar body is confirmed stable, that its orbital configuration is confirmed stable, that its physical properties are confirmed stable, that all observed secondary effects on tidal, seismic, and gravitational reference systems are confirmed stable at their current small magnitudes, and that residents may return to normal sleep and daily patterns with the understanding that no change in the current configuration is expected. That is the phrasing. Residents may return to normal sleep and daily patterns. I want to be precise about what that means. It is a coordination desk telling the public, in the softest available language, that there is nothing further to watch for tonight. The event that began at 9:14 p.m. is being closed on the official record at 3:24 a.m. It is not being closed by resolution. It is being closed on the basis that the current configuration is stable, that no change is expected, and that no further overnight updates are planned before the scheduled morning cycle. That is the shape of the closure. The object has not left. The coordination desks have finished issuing overnight language about it. I want to note one other thing. The public advisory does not use the word return. It does not say the sky is returning to normal. It uses the phrase return to normal sleep and daily patterns. Sleep and patterns, not the sky. The sky is not being described as returning to anything. The sky is being left where it is. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now 3:31 a.m. and the state of the record is as follows. The second lunar body is stable at full intensity. Its properties are fixed. Its orbit is fixed. Its secondary effects are stable and small. The gauges have absorbed it. The seismic array has absorbed it. The coordination bodies have absorbed it. The morning update is scheduled. The faint tone in the reference chain of the station is still holding, unchanged at its low amplitude. 3 coastal observation posts are still, according to what has been relayed to me, unattended, with instruments running. I am holding those threads open on the record. They are not closed. I want a listener to know that they are not closed. The next update is coming. This is KQWL 1620 AM. The station is on the air. The transmitter is stable. We are continuing. It is now 5:12 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. Signing on again from the overnight desk. I stepped back from the microphone for about 90 minutes at the coordination desk's guidance. The broadcast chain was maintained. I did not leave the building. I am back on now for the last hour before dawn. The core facts one final time for any listener joining. The second lunar body arrived in the sky above the Oregon coast at approximately 8:41 p.m. Pacific yesterday evening, without observed ingress. It has been in the sky, at the same position relative to the moon, at the same apparent size, with the same measured properties for the past 8 hours and 31 minutes. It is confirmed from every continent that has had a clear night above it. It is now formally described in the record as a companion body of undetermined origin, in a stable orbital configuration with the Earth-Moon system at full intensity, indefinitely. The new detail I am adding at the sign-on is that the National Coordination Body has, in a short release issued at 4:41 a.m., described the current sky configuration as, quote in the sense of paraphrase, the operational baseline for astronomical, tidal, and navigational reference from this date forward. The operational baseline, that is the phrasing. The sky above us in the record is now the baseline sky. The sky we grew up under is now a prior state. I want to be careful with that. I am not going to characterize what that means for the shape of anyone's life. I am going to note it as a matter of the record. It is now 5:24 a.m. A verified institutional report has come in from a National Astronomical Coordination Body, the last one I expect to relay before the morning update. It describes, in a short closing statement to the overnight cycle, that the second lunar body has completed its first observed period of stable presence, that no variation from its initial configuration has been recorded across that period, and that no future variation is expected in the absence of new information. In the absence of new information, that is the wording. I want to be precise about what that means. It means the coordination body is not, at this time, aware of anything that would cause the object to move, to change, to grow, or to leave. It is not saying nothing will ever change. It is saying that, based on what is currently in the record, nothing will change. If something changes, it will do so because something new arrives, or because something not yet understood becomes understood. Neither of those is expected tonight. I am holding 2 threads still open on the record. The 3 coastal observation posts that were unattended earlier this broadcast. The faint additional tone in the reference chain of this station. Both remain in the same status. The observation posts are still unattended. The tone is still holding at the same low amplitude. Neither has been formally addressed in any coordination released tonight. I want a listener to know that they have not been resolved. They have simply been left where they are, in the same way the sky has been left where it is. It is now 5:37 a.m. A caller from a residential block in Rockaway Beach reports that the sky above the coast has begun to lighten in the east. The moon is low in the west and preparing to set. The second lunar body is still beside it, at the same angular separation, holding position as it has all night. The caller notes, in her description, that the 2 bodies are sitting together at the same rate on the same arc. They will go under the western horizon within the next hour, and the sun will rise behind her in a normal color, on a normal schedule, in a normal sky, and the second lunar body will not be visible during the day. It will be there. The astronomical desk has confirmed that its orbit places it above the horizon for most of the daylight hours. It will simply be too pale against the daylit sky to see, in the way the moon is often too pale against the daylit sky to see. It will be waiting, in effect, for the next clear night. I am relaying that as received. It is now 5:48 a.m. A regional emergency management office has released a morning advisory. I am going to read the substance carefully because it is the last piece of official language for this event. They are advising that no protective action is required. They are advising that ordinary activity may resume on ordinary schedules. They are advising that residents should expect the second lunar body to be visible again after sunset on any clear evening, in a similar position relative to the moon. They are advising that no known mechanism will cause the current configuration to change. They are closing with standing note that any residents in coastal zones should remain within the perimeter of standard advisories until further updates. That is the closing sentence in their release. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now 5:54 AM. I am going to close this overnight broadcast. The moon and the second lunar body are setting together in the west on the same arc at the same rate, as they will do on every clear night from this one forward. The sun is coming up in the east on schedule. The transmitter is stable. The faint tone in the reference chain is still holding at its low amplitude. The 3 coastal observation posts are still unattended. The event is not resolved. The event is stable at full intensity. The sky you were born under is not the sky above you now. The sky above you now is stable, and it is expected to remain so. Remain within the perimeter. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network.